if somebody's coming to you with the energy of fear, and then if you become fearful and respond with the energy of fear, even though we think that we are more spiritually aware, we're not different from them. Welcome to Satori Mindset Podcast. My name is Yuki Yoshii, and this is your time, your moment to reflect on yourself, your life, and to integrate your journey to feel alive, and to ultimately make the awakened version of you a default mode. So let's begin. Okay, so today I want to talk about a golden nugget that comes from Gary Zukav. And Gary Zukav is the author of Seed of the Soul. And apparently he's Oprah's favorite spiritual teacher. And I love his book, Seed of the Soul. I also love his book, Universal Human, if you have not read his book. I think the Universal Human came out during pandemic, and it's a very interesting book. But one of the things, Seed of the Soul, by the way, is intention. And he is one of the people that talk about how can we live from the spiritual point of view, right? He used the term, this is an art school, that we're here to learn the lesson. And he is a proponent, big proponent of teaching the world to live from this soul's perspective. And I wanted to, I read his book, and then I've been exposed to different materials that he has been presenting. And this YouTube Golden Nuggets is about sharing different people teaching, but also to share my perspective of how I see the Golden Nuggets. And he used the term authentic power. And authentic power is the power that you can actually generate by integrating the self and the soul. And it's interesting because when I came across him talking about, I was always talking about the key to this physical life, the success of the life doesn't come from just focusing on the material gain or increase, but it also needs to come from the invisible fulfillment and a meaning that you are experiencing. And in order to accomplish that, I always use the term integration of the self and the soul. So let me just kind of define for me, the distinction between the two. So I often talk about we are spiritual being and living in this physical body. And then we have this psycho-emotional plane, the tool, the mind that we use. We can think, we can feel and emote, and we can believe about something, right? That those are the intellectual plane. In the concept of you, right, whatever the role that you're playing in the world, or the role that you subconsciously assume, because let's say if you had a child, you are a mother, right? So inevitably you cannot not be a mother if you have a child. So you have a concept, an idea of you, how you see yourself, who you think you are, who you feel you are. That is what I call the self. But the soul, the fundamental you, the soul, has nothing to do with any concept, because the self is being shaped by being in the world and being in this contextual field. So we are a relational creature. So you cannot not be anybody without the existence of others, right? So right now I'm speaking, so I'm presenting, but the role as a presenter cannot be born without the receiver, the audience, right? So then you're the receiver, whatever you're watching, listening to, you are the audience. And then now you're playing the role of audience that might not be consciously, but subconsciously, but you are being created and being shaped as the role of audience by forming this relationship and interaction. So when we are living in this physical world where 9 billion people live, you have an interaction, you have a context, you're relational, and then based on that you start creating an underlying assumption of who you feel yourself to be in this world. All those layers are the layers of the self, which has nothing to do with the fundamental soul you, the essential you of who you truly are. Because who you are, let's say if who you are is awareness or soul, the spiritual being doesn't have any concept, right? Now I say soul, right? That the moment I use words, I'm conceptualizing who you are. I mean, if I say who you are, that's another word's conception. So because we are using words as a way to exchange information, then I cannot not conceptualize who you are as long as I am using words to identify, right? Identification is conception, so we cannot get away from it, basically. But then who you are is you are. Who I am is I am, right? There's nothing that comes after. The moment we create something after, we become some sort of concept. So that no name, nobody is who you are. And nobody is also the whole, the expansion, the completion, the perfection that doesn't need to have anything that you need to change. That is the essence of who you are, because the essence of who you are in the spiritual dimension is in the realm of the absolute, which is different from the realm of the relative, that you need some differentiation. So the soul you is full. And then the soul you came here to experience the differentiation through the conception in the mind. Now, that is the self, right? Now, then the integration of that self and the soul. What does it mean to integrate, right? The self needs to lean into, the conception of you needs to lean into and learn how to experience and express the fullness of who you are, the wholeness of you, who you are. So, we often talk about, or people in general talk about, oh, I want to be happy. I want to feel freedom. I want to have peace of mind, right? All those things that we're seeking in this physical world is a place of the totality of who we are through the attainment of the feeling. Let me explain what that means. So let's say everybody wants to have something, right? You cannot not have anything or not do anything in this physical world, because the nature of 3D physical world is the realm of having and doing, right? Stuff exists, material thing exists. The space exists, so we cannot move the body, right? The 3D physical world is the realm of having and doing, right? So using that having and doing, like let's say, if you have a desire in your life, right? It could be a material desire, wants to travel the world, right? Why do you want to travel the world? Because you can, you get to meet with people. And why do you want to get to meet with people? Because you can stimulate your curiosity and interest, and you can have fun and enjoy life. Okay, now then the ultimate goal is to sort of enjoy life, right? Why do you want a certain things, right? A certain car or a house or some spouse or some, I don't know, business success or health. Why do you want all of those? Because we want to feel free. So the ultimate goal of having and being able to do something is for us to actually feel something, right? To feel that fulfillment, feel that satisfaction, feel that freedom, feel that love and joy. So whenever we feel something that allows us to feel expansive, that feeling that we want is actually taking us to the fullness of who we are, right? So in the spiritual talk, we talk about, okay, happiness is not something that you need to actually find. Happiness is actually who you already are. Love is not something that you need to practice loving yourself. All you want to do is to realize that you already are love, or you have always been love, right? The realization of the essence of who you are. And you integrate and match that self, the conception of you, the experience in the dimension of the self, to match that fullness of the soul, is the integration of self and the soul. So, why am I talking about this? Because one of the messages that Gary Zukav has that I love sharing with people is that he talks about the distinction between the external power and authentic power. And this is how I interpret his teaching. Whenever you want to feel or acquire the powerfulness to be able to feel superior than the other, or from the motivation of fear. That person might not be aware that that person is operating on fear, but because we are all one and there's no separation, but the separation is just a result of the illusion of the mind. If you are there and if I'm here and if I want to be able to be powerful, I want to push you down, those are the action and the behavior based on the assumption of separation, right? Then that is called external power because fundamentally that powerfulness is coming from the idea of fear. But the idea of love, which is the opposite of fear, when the power is generated through the idea of love, he calls it authentic power. So this idea comes from this fundamental assumption that we are all one, right? So then you wanna create that unity. You wanna be inspired by others, right? This is something that, especially in this fast-growing social media, technologically advanced society, people tends to get distracted by different feeds and YouTubes like this that people, wants to be entertained and acquire knowledge. And then there is this sort of idea of comparison that people make in their mind. Comparison comes from the idea of fear-based motivation, therefore, is an external power. Yeah. But then if we come from the assumption that we are all one, and then we see somebody who is doing something that you desire to do, you want to be inspired by that person. So that inspiration, feeling the inspiration based on the behavior and action of somebody else, it comes from the lineage and the process of authentic power because you are being inspired, and if somebody's doing that means that you can do it as well. So, and then another thing that I want to mention to kind of finish off this topic is that if you are watching this video, you probably are aware and open to the spiritual world, and you probably might be more aware than people around you. And there might be, times where people comes at you with the energy of fear, with the survival mind. And it's a natural inclination for us humans to actually meet fear with fear. So if somebody's aggressive, we kind of feel agitated to react to that aggressiveness. But what I love about what Gary Zukav said is if somebody's coming to you with the energy of fear, and then if you become fearful and respond with the energy of fear, even though we think that we are more spiritually aware, we're not different from them. Because more spiritually aware means that we need to be able to respond with the energy of love when fear comes towards you. And that's probably one of the most important practice that we could do anywhere, everywhere, because it's easy to react to somebody who is aggressive with that feeling of survival, but then to recognize that reaction and see if you can come from rooting yourself into this spiritual being, the essence of who you are, and how can you meet from the energy of the soul is what we want to practice moment to moment, day by day. So authentic power and meeting fear with love is my interpretation of Golden Nuggets by Gary Zukav. Thank you for listening to the podcast. A message I want you to take with you is this. You have a power to choose how you see yourself and the world at any given moment. So stay connected to that wisdom.